So you see that in the background? Not the kitchen. I know this is a completely different location to what I usually film in, but that like nasty flicker of the lights in the background that's super annoying when you're recording. Well, I'm going to show you how to get rid of that flicker in camera before you even start recording, so that you don't have to spend $100 or more on a plugin to fix it in post. But full disclaimer, you will have to break a common videography rule to do this. So if you don't mind breaking rules, I'll see you after the intro. So as I said, this week's video is going to be about getting rid of that nasty flicker that you saw in that intro clip. And as you can see, it's gone now. But before we can do that, I just want to explain what causes that flicker. The reason the flicker happens is because of the shutter speed in your camera is moving at a different frequency to the lights above, or any lights. Lights like what I'm using here on the Falcon eyes, or the light that's up here that's giving me kind of a bit of a rim light, and my key light, they're LED lights and they don't have a flicker like normal tungsten lights do. So as I said, the reason for the flickering is because the shutter speed on your camera is moving at a different frequency or rate to the tungsten lights. So now that you know what causes the flicker, I'm going to give you two solutions to solve this issue before you even start recording. The first one is what camera settings you have for your camera. Now in Ireland and the UK and mainland Europe, we all shoot in PAL. But if you saw one of my previous videos on what I have for my camera settings, you'll see that I actually shoot in NTSC, and the reason for that is in the ADD you get a few extra frame rates. Instead of 50 frames, you get 60 frames. But because of that, I get a flicker here. And that's because the lights in Ireland and mainland Europe and the UK flicker at a different frame rate than the lights of Canada and America. So if you're an American and you're coming to Ireland and your camera's on your NTSC settings, just change them to PAL, and vice versa. If you're from Ireland and you have your camera on your PAL settings and you go over to America, just change it to NTSC, and that should get rid of the flicker. So my second solution to fixing this issue, and as you can see my background is back to its original flickering, so I can show this example to you, is breaking that videography rule that I mentioned in the intro. And that rule is the 180-degree shutter angle rule. And what that means is, for example, if you shoot at 50 frames per second, your shutter speed should be double that. So it should be 100 or the closest to it. Another example, if you shoot 60 frames per second, which I do quite often, double that is 120, or what you can get the closest to, which is 125 on my camera. But when I shoot at 60 frames per second and have my shutter speed at 125, which is what my settings are now, I get this. To get rid of the flicker in this instance, you have to break that 180-degree shutter angle rule. And to do that, you have to put your shutter down to 100 and you get rid of the flicker. Now it got brighter as well because the shutter is slower, which is allowing more light. But if I switch that back to double the frame rate, you have your flicker. But if I pop that back to 100, you get rid of the flicker. So that's how I get rid of the flickering in camera before I even start recording. So just to summarize, if you're from America or Canada and you shoot natively at NTSC and you find you're traveling to Europe or the UK or Ireland or anything like that, switch your camera to PAL, whatever frame rate you have your settings on should get rid of the flicker. Or if vice versa, you're shooting natively on PAL and you go to America, change your camera settings to NTSC. Or if you're like me and you live in Ireland or mainland Europe or the UK and you shoot natively on NTSC, to get those extra few frames, just go down one notch on your shutter speed and that should get rid of the flicker. So I hope this video was helpful and you learned a little something. I know I did break a very common and very well-known videography rule, but rules are more like guidelines. Until next week guys, I hope you enjoyed this video. Give it a like, subscribe if you haven't already. If you have any video suggestions, I really appreciate them below. I'm starting to run out of a few, at least ones that I have a few planned that need for certain things to align before I can start them. But if you have any other video suggestions that you would like from me, comment below. Otherwise, I hope this is helpful and I'll see you in next week's video. It is warm in here. I'm gonna say toodles. That'll do, I think. It'll be fine. It's warm in here. There's a stove.